Welcome to WBC Faster Together, the LinkedIn Live series of the Women Business Collaborative. I'm Gwen Young, the Chief Operating Officer of WBC, and today my co-host and WBC Advisory Council member Linda Peak-Shack is joined by Dr. Cindy Young to discuss her Harvard Business Review article on Mentoring is Not a One-Way Street. WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 65 women business organizations and hundreds of business leaders building a movement to achieve equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands to create momentum and accelerate the pace of change. Helmed by Edie Frazier as our founder and COO, our leadership is a diverse board of directors and advisory and leaders councils that include more than 34% people of color. And as an organization, we continue to stand with the people of Ukraine in their fight for freedom. And we mourn the passing of icon Madeleine Albright, celebrate her life of service, and honor her legacy by continuing to help women rise and lead. We are guided by her belief that societies are more stable if women are politically and economically empowered. This week, we released our collaboration report on our 9 action initiatives. Check it out in the chat and join our movement at wbccollaborative.org. Each week in this series, we offer different ways to advocate change by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up the power of women's voices for change, and by showcasing the importance of cross-generational collaboration and the allyship of men in the movement. This LinkedIn Live series is a part of many events and briefings we have, such as one we are doing next week at the White House Gender Policy Council. So for today, Linda, let's get started.
Thanks, Gwen. As you said, we are meeting one day after the loss of someone known as a great mentor. And so it's really important on this day, we're talking about mentorship, to honor former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. She had 2 famous quotes. The first was, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." And she wrote that she hoped she would be remembered as a mentor who helped women to know they should show up and lead, and helped young women to know it was okay to interrupt. There's no better person for our monthly cross-generational conversation and leadership than the one we have today, Dr. Cindy Young. Cindy is the founder, CEO of CJ Young Consulting that uses knowledge management practices to help organizations identify and overcome challenges. She's also the curriculum and training lead for Leaders, and we are dropping her LinkedIn and her TED Talk, A Knowledge Mindset, What You Know Comes From Where You Sit, in the chat. And for the purposes of today, Cindy is the author of a very popular, clear, and instructive Harvard Business Review article on reverse mentoring. So Cindy, welcome. Let's start with a definition.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's start with the definition. What is reverse mentoring, and why is it important?
Well, reverse mentoring is it's reverse of what you stereotypically understand as mentoring. Reverse mentoring is where you have somebody that's more junior or younger mentoring somebody older or more experienced. And it's important because everybody has knowledge to share. Everybody has knowledge to transfer to somebody, and that you can make a difference in how business is working, as well as somebody's personal life by mentoring.
Well, there was a moment in your corporate career when you recognized this kind of mentoring and what it looks like and the attitude and approach that it requires. Can you tell us about Bob and that experience?
I can. Okay, Bob's name is Robert Bauer, and Bob was a VP at my company. And while I didn't report directly to him, I considered him my mentor. I still do. I talked to him yesterday, but I do consider him my mentor. But while we were doing some business capture, I was finding a way to put all the pieces together. And my boss, my VP, had suggested doing mind mapping a long time ago. So I was teaching Bob how to mind map, because he was like, "How'd you learn how to do this?" And really, I learned from books, I learned from videos, and I taught myself through practice. And I was able to share it with him, and it really opened his eyes to what we were doing as well and how to see it. Because sometimes a picture is better than a bunch of words written down on paper for people to understand. And we had to convey it to our boss, the business unit president, about what we were doing for capture. So he was really helpful and open about accepting this mentoring. And we don't even call it mentoring between us because I just consider him a good friend as well as a mentor.
Well, and the best mentorship relationships evolve sometimes into friendships.
Yes.
And in your article, you give 5 steps for successful reverse mentoring. So let's just take them one by one.
Okay.
What do you mean by the first one? Know what you have to share.
Well, if you don't know what you had to share, then you can't share it. It seems simple, but if you know you have a skill, and I'm not talking about technology because, you know, when I was growing up with my daughter, you know, my daughter taught me a lot about, you know, iPods and everything else that, you know, you use in your hand. But what's important is knowing that you can help somebody make something better, you know, make a business process easier to understand, make it easier to tell somebody else, or just have a new process in place. But it also helps when you're working with a different generation, because you mentioned intergenerational. You know, we've grown up in different times. I'm in my 50s now, so what I look at as important is not as important as maybe somebody more junior to me in the organization or younger, because they've experienced it differently. And so what they do help with is by sharing that with me. And once I know what I need, or once they know what they have to share, it becomes a very easy process to share knowledge and to mentor.
The next step you have is voice your desire. And we know that women many times have trouble finding a way to do that.
Yes.
How do you then voice your desire to have a reverse mentorship? What kind of advice do you have for women in particular who are who have identified what they have to offer, but now are ready to share it? How do they voice that?
Sometimes is easy as saying, let's sit down and have a talk, and let me explain this to you of how I would see it and get your viewpoint, because it's sometimes not easy to approach somebody that's got more experience, because they may feel that you don't have anything to share with them. But if you tell them that I've done this, or I've seen this done better here, and let me show you, and let them take it for what it's worth. But it's really just about approaching them in a way that they can say no easily if they want to, or that they don't get offended by the way you're approaching them.
Do you have any tips for identifying the best reverse mentor, or by identifying the right people to voice your desire to?
I say somebody who understands not to insult somebody when they're doing it. If they say, boy, you really screwed that up, let me show you how to do it better, that's the worst thing you could do. So it's better to say, I think I can show you a different way of getting this done, maybe better, maybe faster, or more accurately, because quality is important too.
Is there a moment when you perhaps should show, not tell? Is there an argument for doing something and then showing the person and saying, this is another way to do this? Because as I said, sometimes we are hesitant to challenge or to even offer a different opinion to someone who is more senior. So I like that idea, both of being respectful, but maybe also showing as well as telling. So your third step is to set clear expectations, and lots of mentoring relationships flounder on this. I've known young women who expected more of the older woman who was mentoring her than she could offer. And I know that older women have been frustrated with not being able to communicate in traditional ways with the younger people that they are mentoring. They get upset that their emails aren't returned, or that their phone calls aren't returned. So how do you set clear expectations on both sides on how to not only start, but maintain a relationship?
Well, what I do when I want to speak with somebody is, because I don't know their schedule, even if it's in that schedule or on Microsoft. I still don't know if they are actually busy or not. So what I do is I send them a request, or I stop by, if I see them and say, ask them, when's a good time for me to talk to you? And I do that whether they're senior or junior. It's it's important to respect people's time. I also don't take up an hour or 2 hours of time. I try to take if I'm talking to an individual, maybe 15 minutes, maybe a half hour at the most. But it's very important to be respectful of their time. But also, ask them first, what experience do you have with this? And then see if maybe they already know it, but they're just not applying it in that area that they could do it. Or, you could show them start to finish, say, hey, this is what I've done with this. Are you interested in learning about this? It's just I think it's just a respect thing.
Well, and there's the timing issue, and then there's also the content issue, right? And
Right.
I think it's important, at least in my experience, to for both sides to let the other know what they have to offer. Sometimes a younger person might expect a very specific career advice, or even career support, or even help in finding another job. And I think what is your experience in making sure that the expectations are set out in a clear way?
Well, before I start telling them anything or giving them any guidance, I tell them what my limitations are in the area. If I only have experienced some part of it. So when I was working on my project management certification and I got certified, people were asking me, well, how'd you get certified? All I could do was tell them about my experience. And so I shared with them how I thought through the process of qualifying, putting my hours down, writing up my paragraphs in the application. And then as I became more experienced at project management after I got my PMP, I was very careful about what to share, because I always told people there's no room for common sense, and explain to them, little things in project management. So it was just, I limit it to my experience. I don't try to guess. And if we can't find the answer, we generally look it up together, because that educates both of us. But
I like that idea of learning together.
Yes.
One of the things that you say is that it's important to be patient and humble.
Mm-hmm.
That's good advice for anything we do, but why
Yes.
is it important? Why is it important in reverse mentoring?
Well, because you don't want to make the other person sound or feel incompetent because they have to get information from you, or because they're asking you. You don't want them to feel like they've done something wrong. If you know of a different way that may be better. And you also don't want to turn them off if they look at you as a junior person, and that's what they see as a junior younger person. You don't want to turn them off to everybody that's in your demographic, because there's a lot of people that have worth that they can provide. They just don't know they can provide it.
We're trying to avoid the okay boomer syndrome, right?
Yes.
For those of us who are boomers. The last step is treat it like a continuous learning opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
here I want to give some credit to the women of the WBC and the men who are their allies, because if WBC has done anything, and it's done many things, but one of the most important things is to provide opportunities like this, the CEO roundtables, but also to provide the environment, the holding environment for women to share with other women, for their male allies to share with them and support them. And I know that there are people on this on this session who have benefited from the WBC's relationship building and learning environment. So having said that, let's talk about why you made it the fifth and maybe the most important of your steps. Treat it like a continuous learning opportunity. That implies intention, right? Intention and focus. So why'd you add that one, and why is it important?
Well, I'm a very process-driven person. I need steps to learn how to do something, and Usually I do it once, twice, 3 times before it starts to stick, because there's no way to learn everything all at once. And so when you build a relationship, when you meet a person, you may forget their name the second time or third time you see them. So you have to start small. And when you're mentoring, it's important to build that trust, and you can't build trust in just one meeting. You can't build your qualifications in one meeting. You need to continually work with that person so that they know that you're out there for the best interest of them. It's not a what's in it for me, it's what's in it for them.
So this goes back to setting clear expectations, right? And
Right.
the notion of either regular meetings or regular check-ins, is that something that you have found with the people you're working with that is important? Or is a more ad hoc approach the one that you advise?
Well, I can only speak for people I worked with in the past, because I'm just now working with my new team. But people I've worked with in the past, we had biweekly calls, and then individually, if they wanted to talk with me, I made myself available, and I would get calls because they were remote from me, and we would talk about progression in their career. They would talk about, oh, I'm having problems with this customer, and I would just give my experience about what I would do and what I would consider doing. And even when people came to me saying they're looking for different jobs, I'm always of the thing that you can absolutely look for a better job, but don't quit the job you have, because there's always gonna be those shiny objects you want to do, but have the understanding that there's always more to learn. And if you want to grow in that aspect, then that's fine, but just learn how to work with other people, and mentoring is just one part of it. So when they learn how to mentor, and I get better at it, and I also find mentors for myself, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yes, I think many of us have had the experience of advising people not to quit the job, because they have suddenly decided, because they've taken a course or they've identified what they believe is their passion, they're ready to take the leap, perhaps without the kind of guidance that they can get from reverse mentoring. So do you find that people struggle with any of these steps, or is there one of the 5 that people find the hardest time implementing?
Well, I find that people are afraid, the younger generation isn't afraid to share what they know and to share it with more seniors, but sometimes they don't know if they can approach that person. Say if it's their boss, they don't know if they can approach that person because they're afraid of how it's going to be taken. And I think once they get past that first person, it makes it a lot easier. But it's like taking a chair at the table. Don't sit on the outer chair, sit at the chair at the table, and then you'll get more comfortable with it as you go.
Well, I think also for senior mentors to junior people, that your notion of being patient and humble is something that I know those of us who are older sometimes struggle with. I've often said that I have to recognize that the millennial generation comes with the attitude that all opinions are created equal. They have been brought up to believe that they should voice their opinions. And I think for some of us who are in reverse mentorships, we have to remember that, to be patient and humble, and to listen. Have people shared their successes with you?
Yeah. I mean, I I was in the military. I did 23 years in the Navy. And so along the way, I've had people come back to me while I've been, since I've been retired. I had one person want to talk to me on the phone and tell me how happy he was with his career. And I had nothing to do with that career, but he was happy with his career and he enjoyed working for me, which made me feel really good. But I know, looking back at that time, there were definitely things I could have done better for my team. And so That was one thing I learned from that.
Good. Well, we've run out of time, but I really want people to look at your TED Talk and your unique approach to knowledge management. We're going to put the link in the chat for your TED Talk. And I want to remind people what we spoke about several weeks ago, that you can help the journalist in Ukraine through supporting IWMF, whose executive director we had on at the beginning of the war, and that link is in the chat as well. Cindy, thank you so much for telling us more about reverse mentoring and sharing with us your experience and your Harvard Business Review article.
Thank you.
Gwen, why don't you close us out?
Thank you. Thank you, Linda and Cindy, for helping us understand this concept of reverse mentoring and really get into some of the details. It was a great conversation. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And we invite you to wbccollaborative.org to learn about our initiatives, which are to increase women in the C-suite and boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women across capital and industries like technology, and to advance a pipeline of women leaders to bring gender and pay parity and diversity, equity and inclusion to the business landscape. So join our movement, and please join us here next week when I talk to Purba Manjumder, the president of Cyber Innovation Inc. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WB Collaborative. Have a great Thursday.